police off the cuff, backyard beverage, bitching with Bill, whatever you want to call it, but I'm not bitching today. It's too beautiful out to bitch. Good show. I was on a show last night with Duty Ron, my compadre, Duty Ron, fellow NYPD alumnus. You got my new hat on today, my police off the cuff hat on. And it was really interesting because he had an expert on about phone technology and how to build a case that way. And it was really fascinating because I think many of us, Sergeant George Ishak, how are you, buddy? Many of us are a couple of years behind Duty Ron's guest, who was fantastic. To the case, it was applied to the Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho quadruple murder case, and it was just incredible that some of the questions we had in regards, the phone pings, turning the phone on, turning the phone off, the phone going on Kaylee Gonsalves's Wi-Fi, how that was a possibility. Shatim Smith, hello, how are you? Good to see you. Mickey Mantle's in the house. Judy Chris Monos, good morning all. It's afternoon down here on the East Coast. Sergeant George Ishak, when there's no audio, it becomes a very spooky experience. Well, sometimes when I'm doing this on my gimbal, someone will call me on the phone and it's supposed to block all calls, and it doesn't always do that. And what it does sometimes is Shatim Smith, nice to see you too. It'll shut the audio off on the show, and that's what just happened. And I cut the phone call off, so hopefully it was just a very, very short time. So how's everyone doing today? Kim Alston, good to see you. Katerina Frodova, good afternoon, everyone. Frodlova, I said it incorrectly. Katerina Frodlova. I want to learn how to pronounce everyone's name. Mystique, good to see you. So I see a lot of people that are here today that were in Duty Ron's show last night. So it was a pretty fascinating show. And, one of the things we talk about in regards to the quadruple case, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Miss Canodal, I forget her first name, Zana Canodal. I hate to say the Madison the Idaho 4. I like to give them names. That's who they are, and that's what we should never ever forget, that 4 real people lost their lives. Zana Canodal, right. Zana, I think it was spelled with an extra team. Zana with an X, X-A-N. Amy in Boston, I like it when you're guest on a show. Good morning, Sarge. Love the hat. Here's my police off the cuff hat. Last night I wore my NYPD hat. A lot of people like those NYPD hats. But Dawn Marie Buchanan, good afternoon, boss man. Dawn Marie, great to see you, Dawn Marie. Talks to angels. Yeah, now I got these birds wanting to be on the show again. You see that? You hear the birds? So she spoke about how Bryan Kohberger, she had specific timeline stuff about when his phone was turned off, when it was turned back on. And one of the things we all agree with is that how powerful the evidence is, both from an electronic pinging piece of evidence to a behavioral analysis piece of evidence. And that's coming back to the crime scene at 0900. That's 9 a.m. in the morning. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Pete. Always great to see you, buddy. Great to see you. So that's very powerful evidence, because he's considered, unless we find out somewhere along the line that he's killed before, he's considered a mass murderer. He killed 4 people at once. If we find one other murder that he committed, then he is a serial killer. And very common for murderers of all ilks to go back to the scene of the crime. That's where that old expression, oh, he returned to the scene of the crime. Well, that's what he did. He wanted to see the police response at the scene of the crime. And a little strange, right? But when we can show that in an evidentiary fashion. Rick Borgia, hey Bill, nice work last night. Thank you so much. I always love to go on Duty Ron's show. You know, it's a little bit different to be a guest than the host, but you know, I was on with Joni Johnston a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic lady. She looks like Ashley Judd. She's a forensic psychologist, really knows her stuff. And some of the people thought I was a little harsh and criticized her, and I wasn't criticizing her. I was questioning the science, and if I can't do that, I'm not going to do these shows. I'm going to be who I am, and if I'm gruff, and if I'm abrasive, it's, you know, that's Talks to Angels. You have good questions as a guest. Thank you. Just like arsonists, that's part of the thrill for them, going back to the scene of the crime. Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask the questions, and I'm gonna give my opinions. That's what I think people tune into us for, is because they want to ask us questions, hear our opinions, and you know, if they don't like my opinions, that's fine. They don't have to tune into me, you know. And I realize that. But you know, sometimes I pulled it in a little bit last night. I was a sweeter, more soft version of myself, in case you guys hadn't noticed. It was a little cooler. Let's get to the Murdaugh case, the Alec Murdaugh case. I would imagine a lot of you folks have watched. Francesca's in the chat, huh? Good to see her. I would imagine a lot of you guys watched some of Alec Murdaugh's testimony. And I think Phil Grimaldi raised a good point. He says when Alec Murdaugh's being interviewed by his defense attorneys, he has a certain demeanor. It's very calm, it's very sweet, it's very accommodating. But when he's interviewed by the prosecution, he takes on a whole different persona. And you see who he really is come out. You know, one of the things that the defense is trying to show in this case is that, oh no, he's not a killer. He's a caring, loving father that stole $8 million and, you know, was stealing money from lawsuits to the family members of his housekeeper. You know, he's a sweet thief, but he would never kill his wife and his son. And I think what the picture they're trying to paint of him is that he basically lost his soul because of drugs, because he was addicted to prescription drugs. And you could buy that, or you could say that's bull. And Sharif, you discovered that you and Alec Murdaugh have the same birthday, a few years apart. That's a dubious distinction. I don't know if I would want, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. Angel Coleman, J.J. Rollins, 2-year-old boy found. Fantastic. I hope he's okay. Fantastic. I had seen that. I didn't. Another inexplicable disappearance. Vicky O'Quinn, good afternoon, Bill and everyone. Hello to everyone. 79 in the chat, 34 with the thumbs up. A beautiful day here down in Florida. You know, someone in the chat just, I mean, you have some real people that really just sort of like get nasty. Someone said, I wish you'd stop talking about the beach. I live near the beach too. Well, shut up. You don't have a YouTube show, all right? You're not on a show called Police Off the Cuff or Coffee with Cannon. And if you were, you could say whatever you want. Otherwise, shut up. I don't really care. Like criticizing me for mentioning the beach. How, you know, please. Deborah Sullivan, good to see you. Much respect for you, Bill. Thank you so much. Sometimes I get annoyed by some, you know, look, not everything's going to be praise. You know, I'm not, you know, I used to always say, I said this to you guys a million times, I'm not for everyone. I'm an acquired taste, you know. Someone's laughing. Rick Borges laughing. It's freezing here. Love the beach. Nadia Kusan. I love the beach. I love seeing the beach. JJ. Yeah, I thought that everyone would like that, you know. And I'm not from Florida. Just let's make that clear. I'm from New York. I'm a New Yorker. So to be in Florida for me is like, it's so cool. You know, it's really a blessing for me. You know, and you know, based on, you know, some of you guys that listen to me all the time, some of the health problems I have, this is why I came down here for 6 months, to sort of recover for some of the health problems I had. And hopefully I'll come back to New York in May and I'll be all better and all ready to go and ready to do Police Off the Cuff North. Now it's Police Off the Cuff South. But Stephen's eyes, be you, Bill. I am. I'm not gonna change but you know, I'll just say sometimes, I guess that, is in any field. Sometimes people look at actors, look at musicians, look at people that are in the arts. They get criticized all the time, and I'm sure they're trying to do their best work, but no matter what, they get criticized, and I guess that's, you got to develop, like they say, cops, you got to have thicker skin. Matty Boy Sully, good to see you, buddy. You got to have thick skin, like an elephant, right? Or a rhinoceros. Well, I'm comparing cops to elephants and rhinoceros, but yeah, you got to have thicker skin. Be happy for people when they're near the beach. At least you always give us beautiful scenery. Thank you, Kim. Dawn Marie, love your life. Hey, did you guys hear my little thing? I took it off of Instagram, or was it a TikTok? All the macho guys walk like this. All the macho guys walk like this. Except, the thing, it says all the pretty girls. It says all the pretty girls walk like this. I just thought it was funny. I don't know if you guys think that's funny, but I thought I'd do a little bit of an improv. Dawn Marie liked it. Matty Boy Sullivan, Supreme Commander's the best. I just find it, some of the, all this stuff is known as pop culture. It's really like pop culture. And Amy in Boston, do the dance. All the macho guys walk like this. Now YouTube's gonna ban me from the site. But you guys listen to, you guys are on social media, you hear all kinds of different stuff. YLZ Pony says hilarious. Deborah Sullivan, love your joyous humor. Thanks. Lula Morocco, the sheath, the cleaning of the Elantra, the disposal of the garbage. Lula Morocco, I'm sorry, I'm not a real speed reader, but yeah, all the things we were talking about last night, circumstantial evidence, and sometimes people try to minimize circumstantial evidence, and sometimes people try to maximize circumstantial evidence, but what we have to all agree upon is that lots and lots of circumstantial evidence is very, very powerful. It's very powerful, circumstantial evidence. One or two pieces of it, okay, but tons of it, tractor trailers full of circumstantial evidence, we all have to agree that that is very, very powerful. And that's what this case has. Lou, place your point to Bill to stop chat. Oh, okay. Something, I learned something new. I don't have a pointer though because it's on my phone. You're gonna see my finger touch the screen. Matty Boy Sully, we need funny things these days. When we first started this podcast, I started with Mark DeMeo, I guess about 3.5 years ago. And Francesca, in the Murdaugh case, was he detained or in custody when he was being interviewed in the car? I believe he was free to go. I don't believe he was yet under arrest. His lawyer was sitting in the back seat with him. That's unusual. Why the lawyer agreed to let him be interviewed in a car, no less. I believe he was not. I believe he was free to go. So if you're free to go and not under arrest, you have no obligation to speak to the police. But maybe he was trying to show how innocent he was, and he wasn't afraid to be interviewed by the police. So he agreed to that interview with his attorney in the back seat. It didn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me, but he did undergo. And if you watch the interview now, it's really tough to watch. I mean, you watch Alec Murdaugh's body language, and to me, it screams deception. Screams deception, I don't think he could tell the truth if his life depended on it, and it does depend on it now. And look, I wonder if his attorneys agreed to have him testify, or did he say, I'm making that decision against your advice, I'm going to testify. Because it's very rare, folks, it's very rare for a homicide suspect, a murder suspect, especially a double murder suspect, to take the stand. And I would think 99%, let's say 95% of all attorneys would advise their client not to testify. Because look, now everything is fair game. The fact that he'd been stealing for 20 years, or actually he said he'd been addicted to prescription drugs for 20 years. That's all fair game. as a juror, does that make you feel warm and fuzzy that he was addicted to prescription drugs for 20 years? Does that make you sympathetic to him? Or does that make you think this is his excuse for for committing crimes, really? This was desperado, right? He becomes very outspoken in the cross-examination today. Yes, I mean, basically everything is fair game. The judge in the beginning, when he agreed to allow certain things in, his defense wanted all his larceny not allowed into the case. But the judge said, no, that's part of this case, that's part of who he is. And of course the defense thinks, oh, that's prejudicial. I'm sure they'll use that if he does get convicted. He has absolutely nothing to lose, can he? Well, you know something, Amy, in Boston, I said that last night on Duty Ron's show. I think him testifying is an act of desperation. I really do, and I believe if his lawyers gave him the green light and he didn't circumvent their advice, I think that it's an act of desperation, that they really truly see him getting convicted of the double murder. So they're thinking about, well, we have nothing to lose because it looks like he's getting convicted. So does he have a carry permit? I'm not aware that he has a pistol carry permit. He very well could. And again, think of him having a pistol carry permit if he's addicted to prescription drugs. I mean, just lots of the decisions that he made. How about, you know, hiring his friend, his cousin, to shoot him so that his wife could collect $12 million, and in turn, apparently the insurance was in his wife was the beneficiary, but at that point she was dead. So his beneficiary would have been his son Buster, that red-headed young man who testified at the trial. Amy in Boston, he has police lights in his personal car. What? Well, they were, he shouldn't have them now, no way, but they was the Solicitor General. They were the district attorney for many, many years. Look, this town, they ran this town. You know, they were very powerful people, multimillionaires. Think of all the people that were suing in that town. Who do you think they wanted to represent them? You bet the Murdaugh law firm, because they had the power. They knew the judges. They knew all the people. The people in that town were terrified of the Murdaughs. You go into that town and you ask someone a question about that family, they don't want to answer. That's the kind of power that they yielded, you know, in this town. So when we see him testify, 104 people in the chat, 59 with the thumbs up. Folks, this is Coffee with Cannon, Backyard Beverage. Andrea Thompson, it was good to see you last night on Duty Ron Show. I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I thought the guest was fantastic. Every once in a while, Duty Ron takes my advice. So if the son testified, is it one murder and one attempted murder, or am I No, the son testified. That's not the son who was murdered. Paul Murdaugh was murdered along with his mother Maggie. This is the son Buster. He testified as a defense witness. So he was the one that would have been the beneficiary of the life insurance policy had the cousin shot and killed Alec Murdaugh, which he requested him to do. And if you know that whole story, supposedly when he was going to shoot him, as soon as the whole thing just blew up, Alec Murdaugh somehow got into a helicopter and fled the scene and went to a hospital in another state and avoided really interviews by the police. And you know how different, you know, and you see him on the stand. Who does he really despise in this investigation? SLED. SLED stands for South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, because they're not beholden to him They're from the whole state of South Carolina. They're not from this little town that is terrified of the Murdaughs. So that he has tremendous disdain for these people. But one of the things, the many things in this case, Gayla Dennison, hello guys. Guys, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, Coffee with Cannon, Backyard Beverage, Bitchin' with Bill, whatever you want to say. I want to thank everyone. The county didn't, I missed that one about Walmart. Yeah, I mean, look, the Murdaughs were a super, super powerful law firm. And they wielded the power in that town. And when you see how it was abused, when his son, Paul, got in that boating accident, intoxicated, totally intoxicated, there's no doubt about that. He was in a bar, hooking drinks, as some of the, how about interactive friendship with Murdaughs and Bullwaters through generations? Yes. Guys, this Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, Coffee with Cannon. If you're not subscribed to us, go on YouTube, it's free. Hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, and share us to your friends, families, and make good comments. And we like to read your comments and answer lots of them. And if you want to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. You see the folks in the green font that support us. They're part of our they're part of our YouTube channel memberships. Yeah, so this is Scotty Wagner. Good to see you. This is a fascinating case. The fact that he's on the stand. And look at when we talk about Cynthia Lindsay, love your show. Thanks for educating us. Thank you for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. Mary Michael, good to see you too. Dipped in butter. We haven't said that in a while, you know. We know where our bread is buttered, and we decided not to say dipped in butter anymore. Just it's a funny expression, but the derivation of it, it's cop humor, and not everyone gets it, you know. But I hope most of you guys get it, because it was meant to be funny. It was meant to entertain, you know, just like polish my rack. Some people took that a little bit. Basically what that was to polish my rack of medals. That was like a put down to other cops when they were breaking my chops. Say, go get your gun cloth and your gun oil and go polish my rack, you know. So we thought it was funny. So Alec Murdaugh, when we hear him confronted with all of this stuff. Hello, Bill. Good afternoon. Watch you on duty, Ron, last night. Very interested. Martha Minor. Thank you. Matty Boy Sully. Francesca, basically what he's trying to initially say, it was retaliation for a boating accident. Well, this is not a boat accident, and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, he hits an abutment on a bridge. This 19-year-old girl goes into the water. They don't find her for 5 days, so she's dead. Basically all of the other occupants of the boat wound up in the water. Some were able to save themselves. After that boating accident occurred, Alec Murdaugh goes to the hospital and tries to talk to all the surviving victims, telling them not to talk to the police, and that his son, say that his son wasn't operating the boat. Like, just, you know, things that would get a normal person in deep trouble, you know. Pauline Robb says, polish my rack and dipped in butter seems a little off-color to me, if you ask me. Well, it's cop humor. Tell them, Bill. So yeah, yes, Jaws, this is no boating accident, but this surely was a boating accident. Did the multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Paul Murdaugh have anything to do with Alec Murdaugh killing him and his mother, if you believe he did that? Did that have anything or everything to do with that? And of course, the murder in 2015, it's again not charged as a murder, the death, let's say, of Stephen Smith on that road, and that the family never was satisfied that it was an accident. And somehow it's alleged that the Murdaughs were involved in that. That happened in 2015. Duty Ron is on the air. Tiffany was an excellent guest, so knowledgeable. Tiffany was fantastic last night, and Duty Ron found her, I believe, on LinkedIn, which is a great site to find some talent, some guests. Sometimes there's podcast folks that'll try to push their guest on you, and usually if someone's going to a podcast referral service to be a guest, usually they're not all that, that's in my opinion. Jimmy Calandra, hey, how are you, Jimmy? Enjoy your weekend, big guy. You too, Jimmy. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. So fantastic. I was just asking the other day, where has Andy the Gabby Cabby been? And I don't think he's been doing too many shows lately. And Kim said that she looked also, and she doesn't see. Francesca, Stephen Smith case has been reopened in 2022. Yes, it has been reopened, and supposedly, when SLED was interviewing the murders of Paul Murdaugh and Maggie, that they found evidence and information in regards to the Smith murder, or what they considered to be the murder. But we haven't heard, they haven't let that out yet. Oh, guys, someone's asking, the show that I taped 2 weeks ago for New York Homicide, tell you the truth, I don't know when it's coming out. They interviewed me for 4 hours. There was a lieutenant from the 2-3 squad, Dennis Churns. He was interviewed for 4 hours. Detective Pat, I don't even know if he got interviewed yet. He's supposed to be interviewed. So all of those interviews have to be edited. So they have to be edited, and then that's when the show will come out. So I don't know exactly. Lula Morocco, I don't know exactly when it's coming out. But as soon as I hear, I will let you know. I will let you know when it's coming out, because I would like to see it too. And you're always surprised, you talk for 4 hours and they'll cut it down to 2 minutes, and you're like, wow, 4 hours worth of me talking, and they cut it down to 2 minutes. But it's always a good experience, So Alec Murdaugh, I mean, sometimes I read. I mean, I always read the chat, but a lot of people are always thinking, "Oh, there's doubt here, there's doubt there, there's doubt here." And remember, I talked to you the other night about the word reasonable. That's the most important thing, and I repeated the definition of probable cause. And probable cause, and the probable cause hearings, the probable cause affidavit, and it's just facts and circumstances that would allow a reasonable person to believe that a crime has been committed and the person arrested committed the crime. That's probable cause. That's not a high standard, right? The standard we're talking about in the conviction after a criminal trial is, remember the acronym BARD, folks, B-A-R-D, and that stands for beyond a reasonable doubt. And there's that word reasonable again. I mean, they can raise doubt, but is it reasonable that with all this evidence that this is the doubt you're presenting, so I'm supposed to believe this little piece of doubt, but yet I have evidence piled this high? Lula Morocco, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Very much appreciated. Duty Ron's putting my acronym BARD there. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, juries, they understand. They understand what's reasonable. What's the reasonable person standard? What's the reasonable man standard? And we hear that in probable cause. Reasonable. We hear that in beyond a reasonable doubt. Reasonable. What is reasonable and what's not? And just there's going to be doubt, there's going to be mistakes made by the detectives collecting the evidence. I'm sure there was plenty of mistakes, and of course the defense is going to harp on these mistakes, and that's what they're going to attack. They're going to attack witnesses. They're going to attack the inexperience of some of these detectives. So all of those things are what they're going to use to create doubt. But is that reasonable? Are we supposed to just forget about all of the evidence and say, okay, because of this, I'm going to find him not guilty because this detective messed up in his testimony, or this detective didn't collect the evidence correctly, or this detective couldn't articulate what high impact blood spatter was to our, our expert explained it much better. The defense expert sort of disqualified the detective's testimony. So can we believe that? So that's what the defense is going to try to do. Again, create doubt. And people in the jury, we hope, are reasonable enough that they can differentiate between what's real doubt and what's real innocence and what's guilt. And all of those reasons are the reasons that, we have the greatest court system in the world. We have the greatest criminal justice system in the world. You can believe it or not believe it, but we do. And there's things wrong with it, but something, it is still the greatest. Some of the, when I watched Alec Murdaugh testifying yesterday too, some of the latitude that the judge is allowing is interesting. And I think he's allowing it because he's trying to be as fair as possible and perhaps prevent an appeal. And I would think that in this case, because of who Alec Murdaugh is and who his family is, that if he gets convicted, there will 100% chance he's going to appeal it. There's no doubt he's going to appeal it. But when we talk about even Duty Ron's guest last night, the reason electronic evidence is so powerful. Colleen says, I'm predicting a hung jury because the lady in the courtroom was interviewed and said a jury member was crying when Alex... Look, you can't predict what a jury's going to do until they do it. You can't just say, oh, this person was upset, or this person, you could see her really, really crying, really feeling what he was saying. And you can't really explain what a jury's going to do till they come back with their decisions. 2 women cried on the jury, that's fine. It doesn't mean Dr. Pamela, Duty Ron's humbled. So Pauline Robb, his grandfather was the longest running prosecutor in the United States. Yeah, was that why people were getting all teary-eyed? Because he said he loved his grandfather or his great-grandfather? Well, his great-grandfather, I think he said he died in 1944. But his grandfather was the longest-serving. Lula Morocco, I hope I need a Beatles break, Your Honor. Yeah, for sure. Pauline Robb, the great-grandfather's picture was hanging in the courtroom. No doubt. Look, it's a powerful, powerful family. A family that ran everything in that town in South Carolina. Is it Beaufort? Is that the name of the town? Beaufort, South Carolina? Getting back to Duty Ron's guest Tiffany last night, one of the reasons that electronic evidence is so powerful is it gives a timestamp. How important is a timestamp? Timestamps establish alibis, and timestamps destroy alibis. So when we see that TikTok video and the timestamp is on it and he says he wasn't there, and Paul sent the video to his friend who testified at trial. That gives a timestamp. He's there when they were killed. So what are we questioning now? Shatim Smith saying Murdaugh is a powerful family, not guilty or hung jury. Look, you're watching a different trial than I'm watching then. And I didn't watch the whole thing, I'll be perfectly honest. But I know the evidence. Phil and I did this case last year. We were covering it. And we said day one. And of course, we're not on the scene. It's easy for us to say it. Just Jen Bell, I'm looking forward to your version of Danny Boy for St. Paddy's Day. Murdaugh was a powerful family, not anymore. Look, I think members of his family also now know that he destroyed their name, could have destroyed the law firm. He stole $8 million. What do you think that does? Mary Michael, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. Duty Ron, sending super chat because I'd rather send this than have to polish your rack. I love it, Duty Ron. Get your gun cloth and your gun oil and polish my rack. But thank you so much for the $20 super chat. So when we talk about those type of, yes, he said, someone asked, Anna Kochenko, I can't read the last name. He said he was addicted to prescription drugs for over 20 years. But was that said as a try to get the jury to be sympathetic to his plight and that he lost his soul, he lost his morals? Don't forget, if you're an attorney, you're admitted to the bar. You raise your right hand and you certain conduct. Blondie, thank you for the 199 super chat. Anna Kostenko, thank you, sir, big fan. Thank you, guys. Pamela White, Alex was kicked out of his family law firm by his partners. Yes, so do you think the family is still so hot about Alec? Do you really think they're praying that he gets off? If it's true that he killed his wife and his son Paul, do you think the family is really rooting for him to get off? Or do they want the truth? Dr. Pamela Cholette, cry me a river, Alex, that's true. Wowsy Pony, Duty Ron is in the house. That's right, Duty Ron is in the house. Ron, it was great to be on your show last night, and I know the last time I was on with Dr. Johnson, I was a little gruff maybe, I don't know. I still, look, when people criticize me or they criticize Duty Ron, they criticize anyone, that's who I am. You know, I'm not going to change because people don't like what I said. I believe what I said, and I believe what I said was true, and I believe what I said was right. So I'm not going to just change. Bill, can you read in Russian? I'm impressed. LS, you know something? I took a course a long time ago in Russian literature when I was at Buffalo State College. One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and Quiet Flows the Don by Sholokhov. We had to read 7 books. It's over 40 years ago. I remember those books, and I got to know how to pronounce certain Russian names through taking that course. Pamela White, thank you for the $2 super chat. Thank you, Bill, for your program. Thank you, guys. Thank you all you guys for showing up today. 155 in the chat, 117 in the thumbs up. Thank you guys so much for coming. So when I'm talking about Tiffany last night, basically what she was highlighting and why it's so important is because electronic technology supplies us with timestamps. So important. Look how the timestamps are putting Bryan Kohberger at certain places in certain times. If he is in fact on Kaylee Gonsalves's Wi-Fi at a certain time, that is so powerful. That evidence is so powerful. If Alec Murdaugh, his phone puts him in certain places at certain times, that is such powerful. How can they argue that? How is that arguable? How then can you say, oh, I was at my mother's house. Wait a minute, your phone's here. Did you leave your phone? Oh, you didn't, you know. So those timestamps are so powerful that it is incredible. And again, the Bryan Kohberger thing. We heard Tiffany last night talk about the 12 times he was reconning that house. Many folks will say, oh, he could have just been driving around. He lives in that area. He lives 20 minutes away. 20 minutes away, if you don't intend to go there, it's not where you hang your hat. It's not where you're going, say, to a restaurant. It's not where you're hanging out. And that's a very, 1122, the address, is a very specific location and not a lot of vehicular traffic. So if he goes there 12 times to recon, and we got those times memorialized on, Bill, we call the balls and strikes don't need to deviate. That's true, Duty Ron. Thanks again for another $5 super chat. Duty Ron's making big coin. He's throwing it my way, He's afraid he'll have to polish my rack if he doesn't, So those timestamps become incredibly important. And, whether we're talking about the Bryan Kohberger case or the Idaho quadruple. Well, we're thinking, and we spoke to Tiffany last night, that there is a distinct possibility that Kaylee Gonsalves' Wi-Fi picked up Bryan Kohberger's phone. There's a distinct we don't know. The only ones that do know that answer are the police, the investigators, and not someone close to the investigation that's leaking information, you know? The only ones that truly know that answer are the police and the investigators and the FBI, you know? And Lorraine Lawrence, good live last night, Bill, with Tiffany and Ron. Yes, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on Duty Ron's show. In fact, he called me about 45 minutes before the show and was like, hey, could you come on? And I was like, I guess Ed Wallace bagged out. And, or I shouldn't say bagged out. Ed Wallace is all over the world. He's probably doing a million different things. He's a real American hero, teaching crime scene techniques all over the world. Gone with, well, you know something, someone just said that Bryan Kohberger's phone was off, but could his phone have hooked up to the Wi-Fi on one of those 12 occasions that he was reconning 1122 King Street? Could do you think that's strong evidence? Do you think it is? And then that would give, well, we have the places and the times and the duration that he was in the area. But how is that even tremendously strong evidence that even on those days that he was reconning, that it hooked up to the Wi-Fi? What do you guys think? Absolutely. Guys, police off the cuff, real crime stories, coffee with Cannon, backyard beverage, bitching with Bill. Here we are. And we're having a good chat here, you know. It's funny, I have a gentleman in my gym, and I told him about the podcast, and he lives down here, and he's like, oh, I saw you doing it at this location and that location. I go, wow, you know all these locations, you live around here, you know where I'm doing it. Anna Kyochenko, did they have funerals for the victims? I recall seeing a memorial, but not the actual caskets or a funeral. You know, I would imagine they, you know, it's up to each family how they memorialized the victim, whether it was, you know, burial, funeral, cremation. I don't really know. I think the families kept everything sort of low key. They didn't want, you know, the press is all over this as it is, you know. Just Jen, Phil Grimaldi, love you, the Professor Bill and Duty Ron. It's great to, thank you guys for all your praise. Thank you for all your support. Yeah, I think it was private. They did have a memorial service. They had one big memorial service at the University of Idaho for all of them. People got up to speak. You know, it's so heartbreaking when you think of 20-year-olds, two 20-year-olds and two 21-year-olds. And Ethan Chapin was a triplet. He was a triplet. And he's got a brother and a sister. Could you imagine? I mean, triplets and twins, they're connected by something that's not a triplet or a twin could ever understand. They have, when one feels pain, the other feels pain. I mean, it's a real thing. Kaylee and Maddie's parents had cremation. They split the ashes, so both in MRK's parents' house. Lou Lemoracco, the sheath, the cleaning of the Elantra, the disposal of the garbage in the Ravens trash bag, DNA left at the scene, the digital footprint. Lou Lemoracco, you're preaching to the choir. And I believe that you just mentioned some of the most powerful evidence in the case. But you know something? I bet you there's 90 times more evidence than that we're unaware of. Shatim Smith, Bill, and would love to see you, Phil and Duty Ron, do a panel. Bill, do you think the defense in Murdaugh case has introduced reasonable doubt? Look, there's always doubt, but is it reasonable when the jury counts all of the powerful evidence against the reasonable doubt? Is that what is going to raise the doubt, that some detective may have screwed up in some collection of evidence? There were some mistakes made in the investigation. There's human error in everything, you know. But is that doubt enough to let Alec Murdaugh walk from a double murder? Is it? How about his behavior? How about the fact that he admitted on the stand he's basically a pathological liar? He lies about everything. You know, I'm going to repeat a phrase that I first heard, well, I don't know exactly the first time I heard it, but Dr. Maria Haberfeld from John Jay College, known to her friends as Maki Haberfeld, a former Israeli police lieutenant, always would repeat over and over again, past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. So if you're a liar 20 years ago, are you going to change and not be a liar 20 years in the future? And if you're a thief, and if you're a drug abuser, you could beat drugs. You could stop, but you'd have to stop, right? Jamie Pimentel, Phil Grimaldi, God bless innocent kids, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Zaina Knodel. Absolutely. We can't mention those names enough. That's what this case is all about. Yeah, we sometimes lose sight and we forget. And you know, last night I mentioned Steve Gonzalez, and I never want to say anything against Steve Gonzalez or any of the parents of these 4 kids that were murdered in this Idaho case. But one of the reasons that I mentioned last night for the gag order was that Steve Gonzalez was repeating a lot of the investigative information he was being told to the press. So even though it is hands off as far as I'm concerned to him, we had to mention that you know, Anna Kochenko, would they give BK a death sentence if he's found guilty? He's eligible for it. Whether they will in fact go for the death penalty, that is a bargaining chip. That is something they can surely use. That is something I don't know, in fact, if they will go for that. Idaho does have the death penalty. Many states that have it, in fact, New York State has the death penalty, but they won't go for it because all the district attorneys are woke, and they won't. It's against their political ideology to go for the death penalty. They're on the side of criminals more than on the side of victims, in my opinion. So I don't know if Idaho is the same way. I don't know what the politics are of District Attorney Thompson. Will he go for the death penalty? That remains to be seen. But folks, I'm actually at 48 minutes. This went so quickly. I just want to say it was so, you know, Klamavi, I heard nothing about from a reliable source if BK is talking about representing himself. You know, there's an old expression in the law business, any client who represents himself, and I don't know if I'm quoting this exactly, a client who represents himself in a case against himself has an idiot for a client. That's commonly repeated in the law business by everyone. I don't know if he's foolish enough to think that he can represent himself. Big mistake. You know something, a lot of people are getting off death row. A lot of people that were supposed to be doing life without parole. There's a guy in New York, Pappy Mason, who ran one of the big notorious drug crews in Queens. Was supposed to be in prison for life without parole. He just got paroled. He was also implicated in the execution of Edward Burns, a New York City police officer who was guarding a drug dealer's, an informant's house against these guys, and 4 guys came up and executed him in a radio car. This guy, Pappy Mason, was affiliated with that whole crew, and they just paroled him. This is the lunacy of New York. You know, I need a whole show to go into it, which I don't have. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Coffee with Cannon, Backyard Beverage. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, especially on a beautiful day like today. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.